NOlatushani3 and Mr. BMathis, individuals with very, very good information in reference to capital punishment in the state of Tennessee. And since Pastor Walker has been responsible for making sure that these individuals are with us this morning, we want to give him an opportunity to not only introduce himself, but to introduce the two individuals with which we can then deal with this idea of capital punishment in Tennessee. Pastor Walker, you want to start us off there?
Yeah, Dr. Haney, thanks a lot for having us on your show this morning. It's always a pleasure to be in your presence and to be able to speak to issues that concern, I think, everybody, and especially this issue that's dealing with capital punishment. And I'm excited to have along on the show this morning as well, Brother NOlatushani3. I got that right? Did I get it right? NOlatushani. I'm close.
Yeah, you're doing what is typical here.
Yeah. I'm close. I just whacked his name up pretty good. But anyway, anyway, it's a pleasure to have you here, and also BMathis. I met Ben some years ago out there at River Bend Prison, and Dr. Haney. These guys got a story to tell, and I'm just anxious to get into it. Their stories, and Brother Ndume especially, I want to hear what he brings to the table today, and that's why we're here today to talk about capital punishment in the state of Tennessee, and not only just in the state of Tennessee, but all over the United States of America, and just how wrong capital punishment is, and just how that when we put somebody on death row, give them a death sentence, so many innocent people have been executed, so many talented people, so many people that have something to give back to society. And amazingly enough, that so many people that support capital punishment are against abortion. Now you go figure that, I don't want to kill you before you get here, but once you get here, I'll knock you out the box, so what's the difference? You know what I'm saying? So and it's just I'm just glad and excited to be here in the midst of these brothers here, and I just yield to them at this time.
Ben, let's start with you. What's your situation when we talk about capital punishment in the state of Tennessee? How did you become involved in all of this?
Well, I caught a murder case from the in 1987, and they didn't seek the death penalty, but they could have, because by first-degree murder carries a sentence of life and death. And the only thing about me, I was fortunate enough not to get the death penalty. I thank God for that. And but other than that, I did a life sentence. I did 22 years on the life sentence. And that wasn't too much fun, but but I thank God that I was able to carry myself through those 22 years and come out with some sense. Because a lot of people come out, they can't deal with this. But God blessed me enough when I did get out. I had enough, willpower to continue on in society. And
I think it's one thing to say that you were there for 20 years, and then, but the thing about it, it was a day-by-day situation in which you did not recognize when you went in your first year that eventually you would get out. It was always the idea that you were there because you had been sentenced there, and that you would have to be there for the rest of your life. Did that have any impact upon you at all? Well, I know it did, but that's what we're searching for now.
But Dr. Haney, I knew that one day if I lived, I was going to get out. Because, the life sentence, at that time, life sentence was 30 years. And you'd be eligible for parole 19 years and 6 months at that time. But now, I advise anybody that get in any kind of trouble, especially murder cases and stuff like that. This is why I try to teach and talk to these children today, because if you get a life sentence, it's 85%. If you go in at 18 years old, you're going to be 70 years old before you're eligible for parole.
And that's for shooting somebody for stepping on your shoes, or anything like that.
That's right.
So much of this violence in reference to this happens because of some insignificant kind of situation, and so you would advise them over the next 30 seconds, and we'll pick up with you, Mr. NOlatushani3.
Well, I advise them to stay away from trouble, make good choices, because if you don't make good choices, man, because this world out here is mean, and the people don't care nothing about you. When you get in trouble, They don't care. They lock you up and throw the key away. And then you got to fight the rest of your life to try to get out. And 9 out of 10 times, you're not going to get out. So you got a few good cases where people do get out, like in Dume.
Okay, and
It's
of
a
course,
good case.
And of course, we're going to talk about his case after we come back following this first commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you, and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Pastor KWalker, Mr. NOlatushani3, and BMathis in reference to capital punishment in Tennessee, which means that we're basically talking about capital punishment, certainly over the Southeast, but also throughout the United States of America. Mr. NOlatushani3, you've got a special kind of situation that brings you to us this morning. Why don't you give some information within the context of what we're trying to do here today in reference to your situation?
Right. Well, first I want to thank you and thank these guys for, allowing me to be here. And I do think it's a real important issue that we're talking about capital punishment. And I would make this quick reference when you talk about this issue of the death penalty. They actually executed a guy in Texas night before last. It took them 27 minutes to actually declare this guy dead. And so I think that says a whole, that speaks in volumes about the drugs that they're using to administrate death on these guys that's actually sitting on death row. And my particular story is that I'm a fine example where I shouldn't be a death penalty. I spent 28 years in prison, and 20 of them were spent on Tennessee's death row for a crime that I ain't commit. I've been home now since June 1st, made it a year. So I've been home, I guess now, a year and a couple of weeks or so. The death penalty certainly is an issue that I think that we all should, really just think about and try to, we have to take a stance in terms of how wrong it is, first off. Because like I say, my situation is one that, everything that could have possibly went wrong in a capital trial went wrong in my trial, from fabricated evidence, the withholding of evidence of my innocence, everything that could have possibly went wrong. And I sit here, it's a miracle that I actually sit here. I mean, I don't sit here, I sit here despite the system. The system didn't work in my case. I think a lot of time people see, guys being exonerated through DNA, and they think that, okay, this is, how everybody get off. But the reality is most of the people that's been exonerated, DNA didn't have nothing to do with the charge that they was actually involved in. So, and in my case, I was actually tried and convicted in Memphis, Tennessee, in 1985 for a crime that actually happened in 1983. So it was 2 years after the crime actually happened that I was actually put on trial. And the ironic thing about my situation is that I had never been in the state of Tennessee until I was actually brought down here and put on trial
for murder.
Trial for murder.
Wow.
I was actually, I'm actually born and raised in St. Louis. I tell people now I'm a unwilling transplant to Tennessee now, but the reality is that
How did they so mix up your information and whatever to
Right.
2 years after a crime has been committed, they can find you in Missouri
Right.
and end up bringing you to Tennessee and charging you and sending you to death? I mean,
Right.
explain all of that.
I know the truth is more stranger than fiction, but what happened in my case was that the car that was actually supposedly used in the crime, in this robbery murder that actually happened in Memphis in 1983, was actually stolen from the St. Louis airport. Hearst Rental Company, car company, was in the airport. You know, the people involved in the crime actually stole the car from up there. So this is the link that when the authorities started in Memphis, Tennessee, looking for people that was possibly guilty of the crime, that it led them to St. Louis. Now, in my case, I had a prior criminal record, but I had never been locked up for no, stealing no car. So I don't know how, and it was never explained. First off,
How you became a car thief?
Yeah, how I became not only a car thief, but how my name even came up as a suspect. Because if you have authorities in Memphis, Tennessee, send it to another jurisdiction saying that they interested in certain suspects, well then they're gonna be saying that we looking for car thieves, we looking for people that's committing robberies and murders and this stuff here. And in my case, that was not my case. So like I said, it was never explained how my name actually came up. But what happened was, because I did have a prior criminal record, that certainly made it easier for the authorities to make me fit the case, because in my case, is like I said, the charge was actually 2 years old before I actually was put on trial. And so you had me, this young black male, been accused of killing a white prominent business person in Memphis, Tennessee. And at that point, it didn't make no difference, that I want the person, because I'm telling you that the prosecutors and the police, they fabricated evidence, they withheld mountains of evidence showing that I was actually innocent of the charge, and but yet and still, they went forward and did exactly what they did. I stood trial in 1985 in Memphis, and this is just kind of goes to show sort of what the system is like, and still lack to some degree. When it comes to the issue of racism that's involved in the system, is that I actually stood trial in Memphis, Tennessee, and the black population then was, I think, 55% black population, but I was actually put on trial before an all-white jury. So that kind of tells you some about what was really going on at the time in terms of actually trying to do exactly what they did to me, just to say that they actually solved a case. So like I said, everything that could have went wrong in the trial went wrong in the trial. They produced one eyewitness against me out of 18 witnesses or so. And during my trial, the witness testified that he thought I looked like the person, but he wasn't 100% sure.
Wow.
And
that's
so
the only one eyewitness.
he wasn't 100% sure. And so after what people, I don't know if a lot of people know, these guys probably know that, when a witness testified in a criminal charge, before he actually testified, the defendant is not allowed to have his statement that he gave the police prior to his testimony. So once the witness testified, then I was allowed to get his statement. So once we actually got this guy's statement, and we started reading it, my lawyer saying, well, this person ain't saying, what he's saying, they ain't describing you. So we actually had the authorities to go back out that afternoon on this guy's job and bring him back in, and my lawyer can further question him about the description that he had gave the police just minutes after the crime. And what he said was that, literally, exactly what he said was that the police showed him several pictures of nobody but me and told him that I was the person. That's how he identified me. This is what he said in my trial. And so, so like I said, and when they was actually also in my trial, saying that they had actually recovered prints of mine from the
We're going to have to break for our short commercial break, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. Thank you and welcome back to the final segment of the show for today. We're talking to Mr. NOlatushani3, BMathis, and Pastor Walker about capital punishment in the state of Tennessee. And Mr. NOlatushani3 has given us quite a bit of information relative to his incarceration and his stint on death row, and we'll get back to him. But Ben, let's see if we can pick up with you in terms of some of the things that you've tried to do since you have been released, in terms of trying to keep people from following perhaps your footstep, to keep them out of jail in a real sense, out of trouble.
Well, Dr. Haney, I'm affiliated with a group called the Dirty Dozen. I imagine you've had them on your show before. And we go into schools. We even started at an early age. We started with 4th graders, because we got to catch them now at an early age, because when you wait till they get 12 or 13 years old, it's too late. So we go in these different schools and churches and stuff and talk to children and try to instill in them about this system and how bad this system is. And what we do is try to tell them to make good choices, listen to your teachers. That's the main thing I want them to do. Listen to their teachers, because the teachers, like I tell them, the teachers got their education. They trying to help you get yours. Now, how can they help you get yours if you sit in the classroom acting a fool? You know, so these are some of the things that we do. Plus, we go into high rises and try to do different things for the older people, which I live in a high rise myself. And I like what we did here a month or so ago. We had a fish fry for the people, you know, just give it to them. No charge, no nothing. It was got a little group called A Few Good Men. I'm a part of that. Well, matter of fact, I created that, A Few Good Men. And that's what we like to do. We try to do things, try to give back to the community, to show the people that because we made a mistake, that we're not bad people. You know, we're not bad people at all. We just made one bad choice. Like me, I made one bad choice. I never had a criminal record or nothing in my life until this. And at the time, I was 43 years old. It ain't like, you know, because man, like when I went up for parole, the man told me, he said, Mr. Mathis, said, you was an outstanding fella in the community. I said, well, I try to do my best. You know, you don't have nothing but this one charge. And I said, yeah, that's it. But, you know, but what we try to do, we still want to reach out to these kids, because they are our future. And I was so proud the other day of some children. One kid, he graduated from Belmont University. I didn't know the guy. I didn't even know him. But Dr. Haney, he made me so proud, tears rolled down my eyes. I walked up to him and I hugged him. And son, I love you. I said, I don't know you, but I love you. And another little girl, she graduated and she got a full scholarship to UT. See, these are things that make us proud. Us fellas that's been incarcerated and the ones that's getting out here and reaching out for these children. This is what makes us proud, when we see our children doing good and staying out of trouble and not walking around here with their pants hanging off of them. We did a thing back in October last year called Pull Your Pants Up Day. You know, so we do all these kind of things to try to reach out to our children. That's all we can do, is reach out and tell them. And from there on, we hope they make the choices. And I think we reached quite a few of them.
Very good. Mr. NOlatushani3, let's look at your experiences. And the reason I've raised this is because we rarely have an opportunity to talk to somebody who's been there, and you sat on death row for all of these years and then wondering, what was your mental state? I mean, how did you cope day in, day out? What would be a routine in terms of sitting on death row?
Right. I wouldn't necessarily say that. Certainly there are routines, but and they probably can vouch for this, I don't think that there's no such thing as really a routine day in prison, because you never know what's going on.
What did you do every day in
Right. No, I understand that. I think that for me, I did a lot of reading. Like the first 10 years that I was actually locked up, I chose not to have a TV in my cell, because I knew it would just be nothing but a distraction. And during that time, I became a prolific reader. I taught myself how to paint. I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of things that just to try to break up the time and space, because for the first few years that I was on death row, that I was actually in my cell for 23 hours of the day. So, and the only time you ever come out of your cell is you changed up and shackled like some imaginary monster. And when you come out of your cell, you got 2 officers escorting you everywhere you go, and you can't walk 50 feet without turning a circle, because the death row unit out at River Bend Prison is Unit 2 actually. You do everything in there. The only time you come out of that building is to go to court, if you have to go to the infirmary or the hospital or something that's bringing you outside that building, because everything else you do in there, you eat in your cell. Some cells even have showers in it, and they put them in there because they want certain people to not be out of their cell for no more time than necessary. So the little time that it would actually take a person to come out of their cell to be showered, they cut that time down by saying that they put a shower in the cell. So, and certainly for me, even though I sit here, hopefully a whole person, I certainly didn't start out like this here. The first couple of years or so that I was in prison, I was pretty angry. And I don't think I ever lost my anger. I think that what happened for me was that a couple of years into my imprisonment, my mother was actually killed in a car accident. And I mean, I was already low, but at that point I couldn't be hurt no more. I was flat on the ground, so it was at that point that I couldn't do nothing but get up, because I mean, the reality is that, and this is certainly a process that took some process for me in terms of being able to get through this fire, was that, realizing and understanding that life gonna knock us down, but what's important is how we pick ourselves back up. And I think that, like being said, and I mean, even Pastor Walker, the work that they've been doing out here, since they've been home, and I'm out here doing the same work that I'm sure that I know Ben was doing inside, just like I was, and probably him, in terms of trying to reach, young people and let them know the seriousness about, the situation. But I certainly seen people on death row. I got a good friend out there that they have to give them a shot once a month, and if they can get somebody a shot once a month to lay you down for a whole month, there's got to be some powerful stuff. But they give them a shot once a month, and prior to this guy actually mentally, becoming messed up, I mean, this guy, if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't have my GED. I was one of the people while I was sitting on death row that I chose to get a GED, because I never internalized the ideal or belief that I wouldn't be beyond, that they was going to actually do what they, was talking about doing to me. So like I said, I did everything that I possibly could to elevate myself mentally. And, while I was on death row, me and a couple of guys, I don't know if you guys remember, it was a kid in 1995, I think his name was James Rollins. He was actually killed. He was 13 for a starter jacket by another kid. And there was, at that time, me and a couple of other guys on death row, we actually started this organization called Brother United and Proud. And it was strictly getting guys in where we was to reach out to young people and try to make a difference in their lives based on some of the stuff that we was actually seeing at the time. So
very good. Let's let Pastor Walker close us out for today by making some statements in reference to what you believe in reference to what we ought to do. You've got about half a minute to do.
Well, Dr. Haney, that's the whole downside to this whole death penalty thing, because you take some overzealous prosecutors that's willing to do anything and everything just to obtain a conviction so it can look good on their record, on their resume, to build them up. But and then send some young black man or some young white man or some young white black woman, for that regard, in that respect, to the prison system for no apparent reason at all. And it's a bad situation, Dr. Haney, that should be looked in, should be corrected, because now you take, this man spent 20 years on death row and then another 8 years in the prison system before he was finally released from the system. All of this for a crime that he didn't even commit, hadn't he been in the state.
Very good. And of course, let me thank all of you for your participation, and let me encourage our audience to tune in again next week for another informative edition of Comments. Thank you and good morning. Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is President Obama and economic development. And we have with us to talk about President Obama and economic development, Dr. Madhu Parachuri from Tennessee State University. And Dr. Madhu Parachuri, let me welcome you to the show this morning and to tell you how delighted we are to have you, and to remind our audience that they probably remember you with us when you first came by dealing with President Obama and the economic development. Yes. And I'm sure that you can tell us, after you give us some information in reference to your background, education, and et cetera, how things have changed since you were first with us. And that's what we want to talk about today, a sort of a review and a preview of some of the things that have happened. Let's start off by talking about your background, and then we'll get into additional information.
Okay, Dr. Haney, thank you very much for inviting me. Though it has been a long time since I came back here, and this was before President Obama got elected. Mm-hmm. At that time, we were talking about as a candidate, and we were hoping and praying too that he would get elected. And ever since that time, as I predicted, and he has done a fantastic job in getting us out of this rut which the Bush administration has caused us. And every day, hundreds of thousands of workers, they were losing jobs left and right. And the first thing President Obama had done was first arrested that workforce downfall. That's one of the major things which he has done. A number of people still talk about, oh, well, he has 4 years and still the unemployment rate is still around 8%. But that's not true. You know, as a matter of fact, if it is not for President Obama's policies, economic policies, and they were very aggressive, what we call in economics, Keynesian economics, wherever the private enterprise system fails, it is the responsibility of the government, and President Obama took care of that by stopping that, increasing unemployment day by day, plus he was able to create nearly 2.4 million new jobs during the first term. Now, here again, some of you might say, well, why is it still the unemployment rate is so high? If it is not for his economic policies, we would have seen another greatest depression we have had in 1930s, where officially there was the unemployment rate of 25%. Unofficially, it was nearly 50%. That means every other person was really unemployed during the Great Depression. Now, it reminded of that period when the election time and then Bush administration, how they have messed up our economy. So here, ever since he took over office, he has improved the economy tremendously. And today, as of last month data, it was 7.5% of unemployment. Still, it is very high. But don't forget, the number of workers who were laid off, they did not even want to try for a new job during the Bush administration. So after President Obama took over office, the economic policies have given enough incentive for the businessmen to start hiring again. So those people who were not looking for a job because there was no hope, they're all back into the labor force. So because of that, the unemployment rate is still high, but at the same token, you must remember that nearly 2.4 million new jobs were created during the Obama administration. And it is improving still a lot faster.
Very good. And I think, Dr. Parachuri, we're getting ready for the first commercial break, but essentially that's what we're talking about, looking back over that period. in which there was very little hope, as far as a large number of folks were concerned, of any kind of improvement at all.
Right.
That even in spite of the opposition that the president has faced, and some of the major things I think you're going to talk about later has to do with infrastructure and et cetera and et cetera. It's difficult to do infrastructure by himself, you
Right.
see, and of course we're going to talk about that, and we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.
Thank you.
Thank you and welcome back to the second segment of the show for today. We're talking to Dr. Madhu Peraturi from Tennessee State University, and he's given us some information relative to the economic development of the country during President Obama's administration and now his second administration. And Dr. Peraturi, I think that most of us will admit that one of the most important developments during President Obama's administration has been health care. And let's talk about where we were in terms of health care before he became president and where we are moving toward, even though the Affordable Care Act did not go into full effect yet.
Yes. Before Obama took office, became the president, we have 44 million people without any health care. They are not insurable according to the insurance companies. Either they were sick, past record makes them ineligible to be a client for these insurance companies. And these insurance companies see a lot of risk in insuring them. That's why they use all sorts of excuses not to insure number of people. That's one of the major things which the so-called Health Reform Act, which was introduced by our president, is unbelievably very successful, and is going to cover these 45 million people. If they do not have enough income, it is the responsibility of the government to pay the premium. If you can afford, you are expected to pay. So here, this Obamacare, as we all call it now, it was passed in May 23rd of year 2010. There was enormous amount of opposition from the Republicans, but he passed over every objection, and sometimes he had to give up some of the things while he's negotiating with the Republicans, and some of the conservative Democrats too. So he was able, as you all know, he's the most skillful negotiator we have ever had. And the other person, probably other president we can think of is either John F. Kennedy or Lyndon B. Johnson. But among these, they all tried in the past to have this kind of legislation. They could not get anywhere near to get this because of the opposition, especially from the lobbying by the insurance companies and banks and the others, the other reforms which have been implemented now under the Obama administration. So under this new Healthcare Reform Act, which is also known as Obamacare, we have nearly those 44 million people I was talking about who are not having any health care, they are all covered. They are all covered because of this only. Number of states, especially the Republican governors ruled states, have sued him in Supreme Court. And Supreme Court ruled in favor of the president. So this has become officially a law on that time in May. So ever since that time, even the poorest person in this country, they do not have to worry about their health care. And even though it might, some of us may have to pay a little bit more in terms of the premium when we buy these insurances, it is nice to know that we're not going to be dropped off from the insurance. As some of the insurance companies have done in the past, if you are sick, they'll try to find some excuse and drop you from the insurance. Now, it is illegal for them to drop anybody. So that itself is a major boon for all of us. Whether we are rich or poor or middle income group people, it does not make any difference. Every one of us get the benefit. Even though the upper income group people may be paying a little bit more in terms of insurance premium. But otherwise, average person do not have to pay exorbitant amounts. But one thing is, everybody is insured. That is one of the best things which every president for the past 50 plus years have tried very hard, even to get the minimum guaranteed, but they couldn't, they were not successful. And thank heavens, it is a law now. So nobody has to worry about it.
And the Supreme Court has already declared it to be constitutional, but yet the opposition to such a plan will meet almost annually in Congress and decide to try to repeal it. I mean, does that make any sense? I mean, how do you explain that?
No, it's not that easy. Since it is a law, to repeal the law, it takes a lot more majorities in Congress. And plus,
and so they realize that they really cannot repeal this law, but they do. Well, what about infrastructure developments, Dr. Parachuri? Because I understand that this is one of the major ways that
to
the
increase
economy
the employment. Yes. As a matter of fact, if you go anywhere in the country, including Nashville, you see nothing but highway construction here and there, and number of roads are being blocked for the repairs and all that. That means what? Hundreds of thousands of new jobs in construction. That would mean more smoother roads where you do not have to hit these potholes. And that is one of the major things which has helped improving our infrastructure. And they are also, the government is also providing a lot of help for the information technology industry by providing them a lot of grants to do a lot of new research, and including the government. Government has been also using a lot of this IT technology.
Very good. Of course, Dr. Parachuri, we're getting ready for our second break, and after which time we'll have about 10 minutes. And when we come back, what we'd like for you to do is to continue this discussion in terms of economic development, but also to sort of point us in some direction as to what are some of the possibilities that the president might have in terms of trying to overcome some of the opposition that he has in reference to infrastructure and that kind of thing. Because I think that you've got some information in reference to that. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break.